The Cadence Lypso Story, a succinct radio series in 25 episodes tracing the history and development of Cadence Lypso music.
Episode number 4. When Fitzroy Williams, Vivian Wallace, Julie Morillon, Oliver Crookie Crookshank, and Gordon Henderson held their first meeting in Guadeloupe, the group did not have a name. The plan was to rehearse 8 songs, which were already written, composed, and arranged by Gordon Henderson, enter the studio for a record that would be released by the end of the same year. The very next day, a musician who was not selected by Fitzroy Williams became a second Swinging Stars defector and joined the group in Guadeloupe. That was the trumpet player Kremlin Fingal, who arrived with a cornet. One other person who showed keen interest in the group and wanted to be a part of the adventure was Ipo Men, who was admitted to the fold. On the path towards Cadence Lypso, there were many challenges. One of the first was finding a name for the group. The Debs label, the producers of the first album, insisted that the record should be titled Gordon Henderson or Gordon Henderson and the whatever, like Byron Lee and the Dragonaires and many others. The reasoning was the name was already known, which would make the product easier to market. Henderson was, however, adamant that he wanted to be released as a group, and the name Exile One was accepted. Exile One because it was thought the name represented the vast majority of Caribbean people. In 1973, the group Exile One became the first Dominican group to lay the foundation of what would become, a few months later, Cadence Lypso. In our next episode, the actual night when the genre was born. Be sure to join us for this interesting episode number 5.
You have been listening to the Cadence Lypso Story. Be sure to listen to this medium for more episodes of the Cadence Lypso Story. The Cadence Lypso Story, a succinct radio series in 25 episodes tracing the history and development of Cadence Lypso music.
Episode 5. The Birth of Cadence Lypso. The release of the self-titled album Exile One was well received, particularly by the Guadeloupe population, who had adopted the group as one of their own. The music displayed a new wave in Caribbean music. The song titled Don't Bite the Hand That Feeds You was rotated on the very powerful Radio Antilles, the Big Array, which, up to this time, did not have Caribbean music on its playlist. Exile One blazed the trail not only with music, but also with fashion by designing its own stagewear, which leaned towards Africa. Evidence of this can be seen on record jackets of the time. Exile One from day one enjoyed a privilege of prestige, particularly among the youth in Guadeloupe. The repertoire was mixed with funk, soul, R&B, calypso, and reggae, typical Dominican band at the time. Another factor which contributed to the prestige of Exile One in Guadeloupe was the fact that the group performed every Saturday at the exclusive club 971, owned by the same Debs label. It was at that club that a Guadeloupean dance promoter, affectionately named Kiki, based in Paris, France, booked Exile One to perform in Paris for a ball, which is in fact a dance. Interestingly, when Exile One was founded, the general idea was to be a concert band as opposed to the all-night dance bands that were customary in the French West Indies at the time. In fact, Gordon Henderson for some time worked with both Levy King, a dance band, and Exile One, a club and show band, doing dances with one and shows with the other. The Exile One gig in Paris attracted a full house. The band began its show and the crowd applauded with much appreciation. After about 90 minutes on stage, the promoter informed the band that the people had paid to dance and not to witness a show. It is important to note the context. The audience comprised mainly working-class Guadeloupeans and Martinicans who were nostalgic of home and wanted the good old Creole sounds to which they could relate. This is where Exile One was driven by necessity to find its true musical identity and purpose. The group decided right there and then to creolize its repertoire, both musically and linguistically. The musicians spontaneously crafted the mix. The drummer drifted away from the calypso way of playing, and the singer sang in the Creole language. The combination of calypso and compa received immediate success, and the people danced till daybreak. On this night, in 1974, in Paris, France, Cadence Lypso was born of Dominican parents. In our next episode, we will see how Exile One landed a recording contract that very night.
You have been listening to the Cadence Lypso story. Be sure to listen to this medium for more episodes of the Cadence Lypso story, a succinct radio series in 25 episodes tracing the history and development of Cadence Lypso music.
Episode 6, the first Cadence Lypso album. Despite the success of the first Cadence Lypso performance and a record contract proposal from the Voix du Globe label, Exile One was still not convinced that going Creole was the way to go. Like most artists from the region, the group thought that the language of success in the music industry must be English. Besides, Gordon Henderson's two soul music hits were what made the Exile One experience possible. The group was faced with a dilemma. On the one hand, Debs dissuaded Gordon from singing in Creole, hoping to penetrate further markets with soul music. On the other hand, the band was quickly becoming the most sought-after act in the Creole world. The representatives of Exile One were convened first thing Monday morning after the famous dance in Paris to discuss and sign a contract for an album. Exile One provided the list of songs to be recorded. The label manager promptly turned down the songs, demanding that the songs should be in the Creole language similar to those performed at the dance. Exile One turned down the offer. After some discussion, both parties reached a compromise. The group signed 2 albums, one in English, the other in Creole, to be recorded and released simultaneously. Exile One entered the famous Decca Studios in Paris and recorded 2 albums. Both albums were released on the same day, and the Creole album, with songs like Atata and Jamais Voir Ça, became instant hits all over the Creole world. This was the first ever Cadence Lypso record. From that time on, there was no turning back for Cadence Lypso music. Exile One returned to Guadeloupe, where they were based. No sooner had they arrived in Guadeloupe did Henri Debs invite them to his studio to record a Creole album. He was totally convinced the power of Cadence Lypso music removed all the soul music plans previously harbored by Henri Debs. The band decided to add a saxophonist to join Kremlin Fingal to have a mini horn section. That sax player was Pierre Laborde, a younger brother of Edouard Laborde, with whom Gordon Henderson had made his debut recording a few years earlier. As a bonus to Fitzroy Williams, the first song that was recorded was a new version of his hit, Hit Me With Music, so he could finally get copyright protection. Unfortunately, Fitzroy fell ill after the session and returned to Dominica to be treated. Gordon Henderson was forced to do both keyboards and vocals for all the other songs on that album titled Face au Public, and for all performances until Fitzroy was fully recovered. That album became Cadence Lypso's first gold-selling record in France for sales over 100,000 albums, and according to Billboard magazine of April 9, 1977, in an article titled Music for Africa, Gold Without Radio and Television. Exile One was preparing to become the first Creole group to sign a record contract with a major recording company. In our next episode, we'll explore how the group Exile One opened the door to scores of Cadence Lypso artists.
You have been listening to the Cadence Lypso story. Be sure to listen to this medium for more episodes of the Cadence Lypso story. The Cadence Lypso Story, a succinct radio series in 25 episodes tracing the history and development of Cadence Lypso music.
Episode 7. Exile One simply tried to save a night of dancing, and this resulted in the creation of a genre and a movement. One lesson which came out of this is Cadence Lypso, or whatever you choose to call it, does not belong to the musicians. Your musical expression belongs to the people who love and appreciate it. Cadence Lypso is Dominica's gift to the world, and many countries continue to express their appreciation. Undocumented history is often unfair to some who made significant contributions. It has been abundantly repeated that the group Exile 1, for example, was the first to stop the Cadence Lypso genre and movement, the first to record a Cadence Lypso album, opened the doors to the Debs label to scores of Dominican artists, the only Cadence Lypso act to sell gold or to be signed to a major record company. Be that it may, when the question of Cadence Lypso is raised with Dominicans, the first names that come up are Midnight Groovers, Chubby, Gramax, Jeff Joe. These are undoubtedly excellent artists who built their legacies based on Cadence Lypso. Paradoxically, listen to the official Gramax position on the question.
Hello everyone, this is George Thomas, better known as Fresol, the original guitarist and musical director for Gramax. When Gramax migrated to Guadeloupe in April of 1974, the main purpose was to explore and expand our musical market. When we arrived in Guadeloupe, we found that the music scene was totally dominated by Haitian music known as Cadence Rampa. The music was all over the airwaves, at the nightclubs, at the concerts. Haitian bands like Sheshlo, Skasha, DP Express, just to name a few, they were always on tour in Guadeloupe. It was against this backdrop that Gramax adapted and refined its repertoire. We added biggin, merengue, mazouk, and even incorporated some Cadence Rampa to our repertoire. The Gramax style of music really took root at a club named Chatanier in Guadeloupe. In order to keep our audience on the dance floor as long as possible, we started jamming and creating spontaneous music. Sometimes, along with Bolo the drummer, there would be 2 or 3 other guys jamming on other parts of the drum set, while myself, Jeff, and the other guys would add in popular choruses of songs of the day, along with local guest singer Ipomen Liova, who added his French spice to the mix, thus creating an intoxication of pulsating rhythm, which we call Gramax music, also known as cadence. Gramax never categorized its music as Cadence Lypso because it didn't exist during our musical experimentation. At that time, we were listening to and being influenced by the Haitian music Cadence Rampa. By then, Gramax had become a household name in the French Antilles. Songs like Soukouyan, Soleil Tosho, Pada Sea Bakoko Sek, Woi Mi Deba, Ou Pa Bon, Kouchma, just to name a few, helped Gramax etch its name into the archives and history of this music.
Exile One has always considered the Gramax as younger brothers who were very influenced by the Gaylord's Power Union and would be a major contribution to promoting Cadence Lypso around the world. and they did an excellent job at it. Here are a few historical points that modern technology can turn into empirical evidence. Exile One was happy to recommend the Gramax to the Debs label. Exile One was happy to introduce the group to Ipomen. You will remember Ipomen as being a member of Levy King with Gordon Henderson, and Ipomen, who also did a short stint with Exile One. In April 1974, Exile One was at the top of every Creole music hit parade in the region. Now about Haitian music and the way that Haitian music was merged with Caribbean Calypso music to create Cadence Lypso. Haitian music at the time, which was solicited by President François Duvalier, carried two names, Cadence Rampa and Compas Direct. Both genres are almost identical. Many Haitians can't tell one from the other. The only reason that the name, rather the word cadence, was borrowed, it is because it is a cognate. It exists in English and in French. Otherwise, the name could have been Compas Lypso. Every Guadeloupean who spent summer vacations in Guadeloupe at the time knew Exile One to be in residency, to be the resident group of the club Les Châtaigniers, which took practically all the vacationers. Exile One offered the Gramax to replace them once when the group was suffering some form of burnout and went on their first vacation.
You have been listening to the Cadence Lypso story. Be sure to